Early one morning, Boko was getting a passenger train ready when he saw Diesel shunting in the yard. "Good morning!" Diesel stopped, as if to say something, but he remained silent. He then carried on with his work. To be honest, Boko wasn't surprised. But that changed that afternoon when Diesel rolled up alongside. "Hello, I'm, sorry I didn't respond this morning. It's just, well, no one really says things like that to me." "It's alright. Better late than never, I suppose." "You see, I have a reputation, no doubt you've heard of it. But I've changed now." "I can see that very well. Let me ask you, though, what was it that made the Fat Controller keep you on this railway? What made you a permanent resident?" "Well, it's a bit of a long story, but I guess you have the right to know." And this was the story Diesel told. After he was lifted out of the barge, Diesel left in disgrace. It had been the third time he had messed up on the Fat Controller's railway, and knew now he was never coming back. He stopped at Croven's gate for the night. The news had already spread, and even the narrow gauge engine scowled at him. Diesel said nothing. He just sulked like he usually did. He slunk into the shed and moped. His dream, however, was not very reassuring. It was a nightmare about his brothers. But what was more unsettling was the fact that the nightmare was true. The next morning, Diesel woke up very late. His night had not been good. "By God, is he still here? Filthy bastard!" "Come on, Diesel, it's almost 11. Meanwhile, not far down the line, there was trouble. Though definitely the largest, the steamworks isn't the only center for repairs on the island of Sodor. There are several places where minor repairs are handled. One of these is situated at the old steamworks at Croven's gate. However, today there was trouble. The electrical wires were all faulty. There was suddenly a loud surging noise. "Oi! What might that be?" "We need to get the electric wires fixed." "Indeed, I can smell it. Hang on, that smells very burnt. There must be a fire." There was indeed, but before it could be extinguished, it ignited a fuel barrel. "Oh Christ, quick, get the hose!" But it was no use. The fire had spread to the walls. The fire alarm blared, and everyone ran out. "Hey, what about us, folks?" The workmen had already evacuated. It was at this time that Diesel came buzzing by. "Oh Lord, look at that! Help!" Neither Oliver nor Salty could move. They had no fuel and steam. Diesel sat there, staring at the engines who were about to be engulfed in flames. "What are you doing? Are you mad?" Diesel pulled Oliver and Toad out of the burning building to safety. He then shoved Salty out the other end. He was just in time as the flames reached the tracks. He was feeling very hot and exhausted, but suddenly realized that all the workmen were cheering for him. Oliver was in shock. He didn't know what to think. Neither did Salty or Diesel. By that time, the firefighters were already dousing the flames. Soon, the fire was out. The Fat Controller raced to the scene. "Electrical fault. It set off a fuel barrel. That's what we think." "Indeed. This building was due for renovation. Guess we should have done it earlier. Thank goodness you're all safe." "Well, it was thanks to Diesel that me, Oliver, and Salty are still standing." The Fat Controller stared at Toad. Then his eyes fixated on Diesel. "Is that true, gentlemen?" Yes, sir. With quick thinking, he pushed them both out to safety. The Fat Controller's eyes narrowed. He walked over through the burnt building to Diesel. He was about to say something, but stopped. There was a long silence. At last he spoke. "Meet me at Vickerstown later, and I shall talk with you." "Yes, sir." And with that, the Fat Controller walked away. No one knew what to think, and no one said anything. Later that day, Diesel rolled into Vickerstown. The Fat Controller was waiting. Diesel tried to hide the fact that he was dreadfully nervous. Good evening, sir?" "Good evening. As you probably know, you have failed all 3 trials on this railway." Diesel gulped. He couldn't deny that. "You framed duck and then made a mess of the harbour twice, and your attitude towards steam engines is quite frankly despicable. My father would have never had let you come back, let alone 2 times. Yes, sir." Sir Topham Hatt paused impressively. "However, your actions today were nothing more than heroic. I do not know many engines who would be able to race through a burning building to save others, and I must commend you for that." Diesel didn't know what to say. "You've put me in a bit of a difficult moral dilemma. Engines who tell lies and have no respect are sent away. However, those who risk their lives to save others are of tremendous praise." "I see what you mean." The Fat Controller paused again. "Therefore, I will renew your trial and give you 1 final chance. But I mean it this time." "Oh, thank you so much, sir. I will try my hardest. I am truly sorry for what I have done in the past, and will be a really useful engine." "We'll see if you can keep that promise. Now, run along." And sure enough, Diesel did. He got into a few arguments at first, and the engine simply believed he had done it for attention, but he was a different engine. He stayed silent and did his work without fuss. And so the Fat Controller decided to keep me. He put me on shunting duty at Vickerstown. Of course, I did have a few mishaps after that. A year later, I came up with a scheme to get Fergus sent to the smelters. But aside from that, I've changed my attitude. "Well, I can definitely see that you have." "My brothers, of course, were withdrawn, and I suddenly realized that I was obsolete as well." "Definitely understand that. Only one of my brothers is alive today, but no matter what happens, you're safe here on Sodor." "Indeed. Sodor is a safe haven to all types of locomotives, whether steam, diesel, electric, you name it." "How come I haven't heard of this story?" "I guess the steam engines don't discuss it, and I don't blame them, after all the negative associations with me." "Well, I'm sure they don't have a negative image of you now. Unfortunately, I have to get going. But please, if you ever need any help, give me a shout and I won't judge you." "Why, thank you, Boko. Goodbye." And with that, the big green Diesel headed off. Meanwhile, Crowman had been watching in the distance.